Welcome back everyone to Racing Reviews, and welcome back to another episode, our final episode of our Formula 1 2020 team debriefs. And boy, have we saved what I think could be the best until last. You've seen it in the title, you've seen it on the thumbnail. Today, we are talking about Ferrari. What a season. What a crazy season for the Tifosi, the Scarlet Red boys and girls, falling from second place in the 2019 Constructors' Standings to sixth place in the 2020 Championship. 3 podiums over the course of 17 Grand Prix. An awful season for their standards. No victories. And I still can't believe it happened. How did we get to this point? A team that consistently in 2019 were fighting for pole positions, had the most pole positions of any team on the grid. 3 victories, but very easily could have been more last year. And then we get onto 2020. A car which they felt in winter testing had gone backwards a little bit compared to Mercedes. A brand new engine thanks to a slightly shady deal with the FIA over the winter period. We all thought, surely it's not going to be that bad. Surely they're going to be fighting for victories on occasion. Maybe it's not every weekend, but 1 or 2 definitely is going to happen across the season. That's what I thought anyway. I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. No victories is bad enough. It gets worse when Racing Point and AlphaTauri score victories, but I think the real thing that hit home for Ferrari this year was that 6th place in the Constructors' Standings, was the fact that both of their customer teams, Alfa Romeo and Haas, also took a big step backwards thanks to that power unit, which first of all was no good in a straight line, but also the chassis that all 3 of the teams built didn't seem to work particularly well either. And without the heroics of Charles Leclerc, and also a fantastic performance from both drivers in Turkey, they would have gone a whole season without any podiums, without any great results to boast. Bizarre. Utterly bizarre. And what makes it more frustrating from a fan point of view is that we still don't know, and probably will never know, what was wrong with their illegal engine in 2019. And one thing that is for sure is that next year they're going to have to find so many improvements in a year where improvements aren't really allowed. And the team find themselves in a position where if they don't find an absolutely groundbreaking technology within the floor, within the engine, and if they don't find it fast, they're going to be stuck with another season fighting in that midfield, fighting to get into Q3 every weekend. This isn't the Ferrari we know. This is not the Ferrari we've been used to for the past few seasons, but there's no denying 2020, a terrible year for the Tifosi. So, let's move on to the tier list before we talk about our 2 drivers. Our final team that go onto our tier list today are Ferrari. So far, Mercedes are in legendary. Great is McLaren and AlphaTauri. Good for Racing Point, Renault and Red Bull. No one in average as of yet. Alfa Romeo, Williams and Haas are in the bad category. I can tell you now, Ferrari are in a tier of their own. Which one will it be? I think you all know. And I think in the build up to this episode, you all already knew. Ferrari are in the bin. What more can I say? What more can I say at this point? A dreadful year. The only teams behind them were AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams. Terrible year for Ferrari. They must do better in 2021. Carlos Sainz is coming on board. Is that enough? I'm not too sure. But whilst we're on the subject of drivers, let's jump over to our head-to-head. Of course, our 2 drivers for Ferrari in 2020, Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. It was announced before the season even began that Seb would be leaving at the end of the season. How could he go up against his teammate in one final year together? Well, Unfortunately for Seb, the stats are very much in favour of Charles Leclerc. 13.4 in the qualifying battle with an average of 8.2 compared to Seb's 12.2 over the course of the season. Vettel really struggling on a Saturday and even more so on a Sunday, 10.5 in the race head-to-head, with the point a massive gap of 65 between them. Charles just finishing shy of 100, with Vettel on 33 for the entire season. A best qualifying and 4th and 5th between them, with a best race finish of 2nd place for Charles Leclerc at their opening round in Austria, and a 3rd place for Sebastian Vettel at the Turkish Grand Prix at the end of the season. For Charles Leclerc, another year of growth. And actually, all of my comments on Charles are going to be very similar to Max Verstappen. What he was able to prove this year was that he can be a team leader for Ferrari. Yes, he's young. And yes, compared to the majority of drivers on the grid, he is still very inexperienced. But in Formula 1, what really matters is speed. And this year is proof alone that Charles Leclerc has that in abundance. Put on some star-studded performances across 2020, that first race in Austria, a 2nd place, 3rd place at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, a whole host of incredible fights through that midfield in the latter stage of the season is proof enough this guy can lead Ferrari for many years. All the team have to do now is build a car for him that actually works. Will he be challenging for the title next year? Definitely not. But if they can build a car for 2022 that is anywhere close to the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes, Leclerc can be right in that fight. And yes, there are still a couple of areas that need ironing out. That incident with Sebastian Vettel in the opening lap of the Styrian Grand Prix. We also had a moment in Bahrain as well, didn't we? With the two getting very close to each other. There's room for improvement. Also Bahrain hitting Sergio Perez in the opening lap as well in the Sakhir Grand Prix. But as Leclerc gets more and more experience, those kind of incidents will happen less and less. Look at Max Verstappen in those first couple of years at Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton also had a couple of seasons fighting with Felipe Massa when he was at McLaren and Massa was at Ferrari. They always seem to be banging wheels. So for me, 2020, another stellar year for Charles Leclerc. And don't forget, that was only his 3rd season in Formula 1, his first ever year he'd been with the same team in back-to-back seasons. The kid did well this season. He's a special talent. I'm sure he'll be a future world champion. But on the other side of the garage, a very different season. Without that podium at the Turkish Grand Prix, Sebastian Vettel's year would have finished with just 18 points to his name and would have finished the season only just in front of Nico Hülkenberg. Ferrari really did let this man down this year. And yes, Seb did make more mistakes this year, more spins, a crash in qualifying at the Sochi Russian Grand Prix. But for the most part, Ferrari built a car he couldn't drive. He's been with the team since 2015. They knew exactly what they were getting into when building this car. And it wasn't built for Seb. Yes, Charles Leclerc is the future, and yes, they should be preparing for life without Sebastian Vettel and with Leclerc as that number 1 driver. But I still can't shift the fact they did Seb no favours this year. And for a man who has brought them so much success, yes, not world titles, not constructors titles, but multiple Grand Prix victories, 2 seasons in 2017 and 2018, where if Ferrari just cleaned up their act a little bit, we very well could be sitting here with Vettel being a Ferrari world champion. It wasn't the case. It wasn't to be. Will Seb refine that form we saw in his early days at Ferrari and his time at Red Bull? Now he moves to Aston Martin. I hope so. I really hope so. And I do believe that performance in Turkey is proof enough. He's still got the talent. He's still got the speed. Is that consistency still there? That's that big question mark. And up against a controversial driver like Lance Stroll, he's really going to have to find that and find that early in the 2021 season. For Ferrari, they're bringing in Sainz. And actually, I think Carlos is one of the better replacements they could have chosen from. I think Daniel Ricciardo would have been an awesome option, but Sainz ain't too bad either. He will bring that consistency. He will bring a strong challenge for Charles Leclerc. But as I said earlier, will that fix Ferrari's problems for this coming season? I'm not too sure it will. But before we go, for one final time in this team debrief season, let's head over to our driver tier list. It's looking full. We've got 2 more to go. So far, it looks a little bit like this. With Perez, Hamilton, Russell and Romain Grosjean, I had to do it. I had to put Grosjean in there, all in the legendary category. It's great for Gasly, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. Good for both McLarens, both Alfa Romeos, Russell's time at Williams and also Lance Stroll. An average season for Kvyat, Bottas, Ocon, the Williams pair of Latifi and Aitken, the Haas duo of Magnussen and Fittipaldi. A bad season for Alex Albon. For the 2 Ferrari drivers, Leclerc and Vettel, for one final time, I have gone with this. And that is your completed order. With Charles Leclerc joining Verstappen, Ricciardo, the Hulk, and Pierre Gasly having a great season. Certainly wasn't perfect, but he dragged that awful car to some incredible results this year. And as I mentioned earlier, I think was on another similar level to Max Verstappen this year. I think those two have got such a good rivalry building for the next couple of years of F1. And Seb. Poor Seb. Just like Alex, I didn't want to do it, but he's gone in the bad category. It's not been that podium. I really do believe that was an incredible drive Vettel had at Turkey, but it was a terrible year. That was not the Seb any of us were used to. He can do better. I'm sure he will do better in 2021. But as always, we're just going to have to wait and see. And that is it for all of your Formula 1 2020 content here on Racing Reviews. 2021 can get underway now. So, in a couple of days' time, I will be back bringing you brand new content as we start our march towards 2021. Hopefully you can join me for that, and hopefully we'll have a cracking year. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. Let me know your tier lists in the comment section down below. I'll be joining you very shortly. Thanks guys, and I hope to see you all in the next one.